Okay. I think people will probably still come in little by little, but we can start. Thanks for coming, everybody. We did
You're
something.
welcome. This is fun.
We did something the first time, which was pretty cool. We can try that this time as well, where everybody popped on their camera for a minute and just kind of said hey to everybody and tell us where you are and what you're up to. So you'll just come on, you'll say hey, what's going on, and then you'll turn your camera off. There's a button to turn your camera on with a little camera on it. So I'll start, and then we'll just go around and have everybody do that.
Okay.
Let's see if I can do it. Can you see me?
I can.
Okay. Great.
See you.
Okay. So again, I've met many of you, not all of you. I see Magid just showed up. Welcome, Magid, from Egypt, who I worked with there. So I'm in Vermont. It is a very foggy day. I can barely see out my window. Yeah, and I'm just looking forward to this discussion. Last time it went really well. It was nice just to have a chance to check in with everybody and see what we're up to. And today, hopefully start looking at the competencies and seeing, trying to begin a conversation around those. I guess you can see you should be able to see my page. Uh-oh. Am I still connected to you guys? Hello? Okay. So you should be able to see my page. This is the blog I've been working on as well for about a year now or more. So we can talk about that a little bit too. All right. I'll let someone else come on.
Problem is.
Mukhtar, are you there?
Yeah, hi Kevin. We just noticed that you've frozen. If you could switch your camera off and switch it on again, maybe that's what the problem is.
Well, we had a little brownout here. Our power went out.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
I noticed something too. So, yeah, it looks like your screen is back.
Okay, let's just give it a minute.
Uh-huh.
I've turned off my camera. There we go.
Yeah, you're good. If you could turn it back on again, probably would be able to see you again.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back. Is everybody seeing Kevin?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Okay, sorry about that, y'all. We had a little power blur. Heard some thunder, and then the power went out. So, welcome to Vermont. We're not the most. We try to stay online, but it's a challenge sometimes. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to talking with y'all today. Again, about competencies, and also what you see up now is the blog that we've been working on. So, maybe a little feedback on that would be helpful as well. All right, I'll get away so someone else can come on. So maybe Carrie, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'll give it a try.
And so while Carrie comes on, remember some new people have come on. If you can just mute yourself while you're not speaking, and then unmute yourself when it's time to speak.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello. I can see myself. Can everyone else see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I am in Riobamba, Ecuador, in my sparsely furnished living room. And I'm looking forward to this meeting. This is the first time I've ever used GoToMeeting before. And so far I can tell you that the connection is better than Skype. So this might be a good option for the future. Let's see. That's about it. As long as I know you can't hear the military base, I'm good. Okay, I'll sign off now and wait for someone else to come on.
Let's see who else is here. Maggot, are you here? Do you want to come on?
Oh, sure, Kevin. Hi, everybody. I'm Magid Khalil. I'm from Egypt. This is my first time on GoToMeeting, so it's a little bit awkward. It's difficult to deal with, but the sound is much, much better than Skype, so I think we're gonna use it in the future, and that's it, Kevin. Can you hear the sound clearly?
Hey, Maggot. Yeah, I can hear you. Do you have?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I think that's it.
Yes, Magid. It's a little bit choppy, but it's good, Magid.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Thanks. Okay.
And just to chime in a little bit, Maggot is one of our new P-Celt trainers, which is a course we're offering throughout the Middle East and North African region. So welcome, Maggot.
Thanks, Kevin.
I just put my camera on. Hi, Megan. Nice to see you, or hear you anyway. And nice to see you, Carrie. I'm in Quebec at home, and this is my first time here also. So far, it seems to be working fine in spite of my not very fast connection, but I'm getting a message that says I have to turn off my video. So I will turn off my video and say hi to everyone.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay.
Who else is anyone else here? James.
Hello. Hi, this is James. I'm here in South Korea, Daegu, and this is my second meeting. So we really had an awesome meeting last, I guess it's 2 months ago now. So I look forward to hearing more and finding out more about the meeting. So nice to see you all.
Nice to see you, James. Is there anyone else?
Hi, James.
Anyone else that's not showing up on chat or who hasn't had a chance?
Amanda?
Amanda.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm trying to put on my video. I don't know if it's working though. Let me see. Let's see. Can you see me?
Yes. Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Amanda Rossi, and I am calling from Costa Rica, and it is a beautiful day in Costa Rica. Would you like to see? This is my house. And the sun might be too bright for you to see, but it is beautiful out.
Nice.
And that's it. This is my second time Skyping, or not Skyping, meeting with you guys. The last time my what's it called? Microphone didn't work, so I hope it works this time. All right, I'll be listening to you. Bye.
Okay, great. Well, nice to see everybody. Actually, Mukhtar, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Mukhtar, and I'm not too far from where Kevin is sitting. It's just a different building. It's very foggy, as Kevin just said, but you know, looking forward to a great conversation. This is the second time I'm sitting for a conversation like this. Actually, I am the instructional technologist of the institution, trying to help with online education, online courses, and all of that. So I work with Kevin and a lot of other colleagues, and looking forward to listening to you guys.
Thanks, Mukhtar. Wouldn't be possible without you.
Oh, thanks.
And it looks like we might have one more. Herman, are you there? Herman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody.
If you could turn on your
Gomez,
camera,
and,
Herman.
okay, give me a sec.
Sure.
Okay. So, hello, everybody. My name is Herman Gomez, and I'm currently living in Daegu, South Korea, working at UCC, and I'm glad to be joining everybody.
Thanks, Herman.
Okay. Should I turn off my camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. It looks like this is our crew today. Good turnout. So, unless there's something else burning, what I wanted to start with today was in the last meeting, we started talking about content, but it was brought up. But since this is an objectives-driven course, then probably the best place to start talking about content would be to start talking about our objectives, which largely live in the participant record book that we use for assessing the participants. So this is really the driving force of how we decide what input sessions to deliver and how we're going to best get this group of participants to meet those competencies. So I guess just we could start with just a general, as we do, sort of feelings. What are your feelings about the competencies, the record book, and then we can go into more specifics from there.
I'd like to say that
Well, since
when I took the course,
everybody seems to be being very quiet, maybe I'll throw in my 2 cents worth. I think that the record book has evolved into something that's getting better and better. I think my major problem with the record book, particularly with non-native speakers, is the first page where we've got the rating scale. I think it's really daunting for anyone, but particularly for non-native speakers. How do other people feel about that?
I haven't had a chance to work with non-native speakers yet, but I'll be doing a course for a course that's just all Ecuadorian teachers in February, so I could probably speak to that more later. On the last course I worked on, the participants didn't seem to have a problem working out what the designations meant. It was just a matter of they had to keep rereading them every time they approached a new section or subsection, and it was really time consuming for them. But that said, I don't know how you could actually abbreviate those any further. And they're so specific, but they're not exactly wordy. I think it's just difficult if people are coming to the course and they don't have that terminology at the beginning of the course for them to understand what we're looking for.
Amanda, you were going to say something?
I'd like to share what we do in Costa Rica with, yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Working with the numbers, the very first day when the P's come, our P's, we meet with them on Sunday. And one of the first things that we do in terms of the numbers is actually just make it a little bit more practical. And so one of the things that we do is think of things that I would consider myself a 2 in. So trying to make it more personalized. So for example, I know 0 about, let's say, physics. I know nothing about physics. I've never taken a physics class in my life. And giving them examples of things that I would be a 0 in, a 1 in, a 2 in, and just to get them an idea of what those numbers actually mean. And then on our course, since we use eCRIF as one of our frameworks, we no longer use PPP or PPU. These numbers become part of our daily routine of how are you feeling with this information? Are you a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4, or 5? And I find that using these numbers constantly helps them to understand what it's going to mean for planning, teaching, and reflecting.
Thanks, Amanda. I like that idea of recycling it throughout the course. I've never done it by tying it directly with eCRIF, but I think that's a nice idea. I think also the idea of somehow recycling it is a good idea, and also, like you said, introducing it in some way. I know Susan mentioned working with non-native speakers, but I also noticed working in, maybe Magid could speak to this, but working in Egypt and different places like that, I found that people who weren't used to a competency-based assessment system were really thrown off by this approach to assessment. Things where they would start like counting the numbers and trying to compare who had the most numbers or the least, and so I think we ran into some sort of belief issues and some just conceptual challenges around what it means to be assessed in this way.
Yeah, I think that recycling them and actually also kind of comparing them to the stages of eCRIF have been really helpful for the Ps on the course in Costa Rica. I think it helps them to become more acquainted with eCRIF. They start to actually live it in the classroom as learners. And so when they're able to identify where they are, I think then when they go to reflect on their teaching and their planning, it helps a lot.
Amanda, could you be more specific? How do you exactly how do you tie them in with eCRIF?
Sure. So if you look at the numbers and they kind of go along, except for I guess 0 and 1 could be encounter. 2 is now you know it exists and you're becoming skilled, so hopefully clarifying. 3 would be a remembering, something that you're still working on, that you don't always get it right, that there's still a lot of space for practicing. 4 is like a internalization. You're really it's starting to flow more. It's starting to become more natural. And then 5 is when you're fluent with it. It becomes something that you don't even think about. So that's how we relate it to eCRIF.
Thanks, Amanda. We have a couple of new people, so just to catch folks up, we started talking about the competencies, and the first thing that was brought up was were the assessment criteria that we use, from unconscious to consciously skilled. And so we're kind of discussing that and some of the challenges and how to clarify this system for the participants. And Mary, I see you're in there, and Amanda was clarifying how you guys tie this assessment scale in with ECRIF. I don't know if you wanted to say anything more about that.
Oh, did you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I
we can
can.
hear you, Mary.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Mary.
Did you hear what I said just now, or was that gone?
That's gone. Sure,
Oh,
it was
sorry.
lovely.
Okay. Well, I was saying I just joined. Sorry, had some technical problems here. So I don't know what was said, but I think that one really important thing in terms of, because assessment is such a vague area and most learners' experience of assessment is very subjective, and they're really thinking about what the teacher wants them to do as opposed to how to really understand their learning. It's important to have a system that's coherent, and I think that tying it in with ECRIF makes a lot of sense. So we can say they're descriptors that the participants are learning and in other areas. So I think it makes it coherent.
Thanks, Mary. And Amanda was saying that there's kind of you put a relationship between the different stages of ECRIF and the numbers, roughly. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. That's how. I mean, the goal for this for people on the course is for them to do a 3 or a 4. So the descriptors. I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier, but I wrote most of the original descriptions of all of these descriptors. Because I wanted something so specific that my participants could see where they are, in their process of learning, and that they could take a little bit more ownership of what they could do to continue on. But also, the reason the descriptors are so, some people would say wordy, but I think so detailed is because they've got, one of the challenges is that a lot of times participants will be on the course and they won't know whether they're passing or failing. And that's a real stressor. And I also think it's unfair. And so if they can see all along that they need to reach a 3, okay, I have to do it at least once effectively. And I can do it, a few times and it's not as effective, and I need to plan it, that it's much easier to quantify it. So yeah, that's exactly what those numbers were chosen from. They came from the ECRIF piece.
And like Mary was saying, in our first introduction of actually doing an ECRIF sample lesson, we start to get people to rate themselves using this number system. Like, where would you think you are with ECRIF right now after seeing your first demo lesson? And people will put up their only one finger and say, you want to know what, I'm just encountering this. And I think that it gives them a lot of space, number one, to start self-assessing, and also to see how much growth that they're achieving. When you do their second ECRIF demo lesson, or they see it in class, they might say, oh wow, now I feel like I'm a 2, now I feel like I'm a 3. And I really do think that they coincide with the descriptors for the course.
Other thoughts on the descriptors?
This is Mary. I'm not sure if somebody is speaking or if it's quiet. I'm curious, what were some of the, because I'm sorry I'm late, but whether it was some of the challenges or questions or something with the descriptors?
Hey, Mary. Susan had just raised that working with non-native speakers can be challenging, having them understand the descriptors.
Yeah. Yeah. James and I worked on this piece for non-native speakers that also describes some of it. James, I just saw your message. Be happy to share that. Absolutely. I'm on my iPhone, so I don't have it here right now. Yeah, we could certainly share. You can simplify them for non-native speakers. And the other thing is about how we teach it. You know, I usually do an interactive activity where they learn about eCRIF, like for non-native speakers, but for native speakers too, it can be a lot of information to process. But if you do an activity where they're learning about eCRIF and then you're interacting with them, and maybe you have them do as a pre-reading task for the assessment form, and then they work with the assessment form in pairs. You know, you treat it like a PDP. I think that it's really possible. Yeah. But we can send you some simplified descriptors.
Thanks, Mary. And Amanda also mentioned how it's introduced, and I know when I tried this, I tried to do this better in Tunisia, trying to introduce the concept of assessing in this way. And I know I borrowed your activity, Mary, with the clapping activity, and I found that helpful. I did it right at the beginning of the course because they were really concerned about assessment from the first day. I guess most participants are, and I tried to introduce, I actually began by introducing assessment in general, but also looking specifically at how they would be assessed on the course, and trying to lay kind of a conceptual foundation of why we're assessing in this way, what's the value of it.
Yeah.
One of the concerns that was raised in that course with my participants was because of some of them were frustrated by the fact that it assesses the number of times you've seen something. Some of them came in with like a lot of experience, and they felt like it didn't take into account their previous experience. That was one of the concerns that was raised in that course.
What do you mean by number of times you've seen something?
So they were feeling like when they read this, it said you've done this a few times or more than a few times. And so when I said to one person that I'd only seen them do it once, which was true, they said, but I've been doing this in my classroom for many years.
Oh yeah, I mean, if they're one thing I think is I mean, obviously that's a challenge. Like to get to a 5, you'd have to come in doing it. I mean, you'd have to come in doing it fluently. You know, you'd have to come in on the courses with it, or at least in the 4 stage. But we definitely acknowledge people. Like if somebody comes in and we see them in practice teaching, and they can obviously give instructions in a very effective way, then they're probably at a 3 or a 4 or maybe a 5. So I can't necessarily say that I can't speak. I can't see everything that's going on, but I can certainly assess what I've seen. So I guess the question would also just be how well does that fit the criteria of whatever it is that you're assessing?
Sure. Yeah.
I guess, and that's also the hard thing, like, because a lot of the assessment forms I've seen, they say they do it effectively, but there's no description of what effectively is.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Thanks for sending that, James.
We're teaching a 2-week course here now on assessment, on classroom assessment, and using this to help people on their formative assessment skills. We taught it last year once, and we're going to teach it again this year once. So it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people don't, in traditional education, I'm taking a course where 40% is one paper, 40% is another paper, and 20% is the final exam. So there really is no feedback on learning. It's just on if I can show my declarative knowledge of something. And I think the challenge here is that we're talking about, you know, we're going beyond declarative knowledge and putting things into practice, and that gets a little bit sticky. And people aren't used to it.
Right. Well, thanks, Mary. Was there anything else about these before we go into the actual competencies?
Kevin?
Hi,
Can you
Maggot.
hear me?
Yes.
I'm
we can hear
Maggot. Hi, Kevin. Sorry, the situation in Egypt is like, I think Mary, when she said she taught in ESL context. Here in Egypt, most of the participants are grade-oriented. So when we asked them at the beginning to assess themselves, they thought that if they put 5 for themselves, wow, they already finished the course, or they are great. So for the descriptor to explain them for the participants, I just tell them, try to read the competences first before you read the descriptor, just to feel if you know all these things. This is one of the things. The second thing, I stopped using grades. I started to use the symbols like CS or US, something like that. It's much preferable because each time we put that in the participants record book, they go back to read the.
Maggot, we lost you there. Maggot, are you there?
Yes, Kevin.
Sorry, we lost you there.
Oh, shall I repeat myself again?
Just the last part. We got most of it.
Okay, I just asked the participants to overcome the idea of grades. I stopped putting grades from 0 to 5, and we used the symbols like CS or US, something like that, just for the participants to go back again and read the competences each time they need to assess themselves.
Thanks, Maggot.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I think that's great to adapt it to the circumstances, right? We know you know your learners, so you've got to find a way to help your learners learn this, and those kind of adaptations, you know, are really important. I think the important thing is that we help our learners see, or teachers see, the steps and stages that are possible rather than making it so black and white or just an A or just a C or that kind of thing. We need to know what they mean and does it really help them learn.
Okay. Thanks, Maggot and Mary. I guess moving on, just looking at the actual competencies. Again, a lot of time and energy has been put into creating these, and that said, at least since I've come on, we haven't really looked at them. Just again, in general, what are your feelings about the competencies that we're using? Are they working for you? Are they not working? What are your general thoughts about the competencies themselves?
Yes, Mary.
I don't think anyone is talking right now. Is that right?
That's right, Susan. Just you.
I'll just say I think that the competencies have been simplified to a point where they are understandable, I think, for everyone. I think the whole format of the record book is still a little bit daunting for people at first, and I think probably the best way to handle that is, as Mary and Amanda have been saying, to spend some time at the beginning of the course and really make sure that people get it.
And Susan, is there a way that you've done that successfully, or?
Not in a very specific way. Does anyone else have a specific way that they do it? I usually have people read it at the end of as homework after the first day, and then on the second day have them do a little share, a pair share, and then go over questions about it and just try to make sure that they understand what it's about. But I'd love to hear other people's ways of handling that.
I know we talked about this briefly at the last meeting, and one thing I've tried to start doing is use the competencies throughout the course, so not only at the beginning and the mid and the end, but I'll often create, for certain assignments, I've created a competency sheet to go on the front that then I can, so when they're reading their learning essay, for example, they also have, in addition to my feedback, they have a competency sheet, a sort of cover sheet that speaks to how well they've worked with those competencies in that essay. So I've tried to recycle the competencies many times throughout the course, and also in feedback. I've never created a sheet for that, but I try to bring those up and point those out specifically in feedback.
It might be interesting if you could send those around.
Sure, I could do that.
I haven't had the opportunity yet to teach the competency sheet as a lesson, but I do something that's similar in my English classes. I usually provide a really detailed syllabus for every course, and then on the first day of the course I teach the syllabus, and it's essentially kind of a pair-oriented quiz game. So it's interesting and it's fun, but it makes them really dig through the document for details. And then it also allows them a chance to ask questions about what they don't understand at the end. So I can see something like that working for a competency book as well, although the length of the document might cause problems. Maybe just take a section and then ask them to familiarize themselves with one section of it and then follow Susan's lead and assign the rest of it as kind of homework reading. It's just a suggestion. But
this is Mary. I would just reiterate that I feel like it needs to be treated like a PDP. I think just understanding that people are making sense out of a text and how we need to use all of our different senses before, during, and after the reading of this particular document, and that it's a document that's meant to be read at least 4 times and worked with at least 4 times. But I also think that bringing up pieces of the document, so when you're doing the session on objectives, these particular descriptors should be very present in that session. You know, whether you ask participants to go to that section in the assessment, or whether you make another copy of those and say, remember, these are, you know, and if the trainer is referring back to these competencies and really integrating them, it will be, by the end of the course, the participants will have integrated them as well. So I think it's a lot about how the trainer makes the form come alive, and it's not a flat one-time experience. It's how it's woven in throughout the whole course. And I think James sent, I know James sent Kevin the I can statements we took for a course that we just worked on. That's just a course on teaching speaking. We had descriptors and we put them in I can statements as opposed to so I don't know that using that I can made it feel a little bit simpler, and so I hope that that might be helpful or of use to people too.
I guess one thing that could be taken into account is, thinking in terms of how to get participants to become familiar with the assessment, with the competencies, is also to keep in mind that there's a difference between let's say, the cognitive understanding of the meta language, meaning, I know what I have heard about modeling, I can define what modeling means, but also the actual practice of it, the execution of it. And I may have a great understanding of and define modeling, and at the same time may not be skillful in doing so. So my perception could be affected by my knowledge of modeling as a meta language, and thinking, well, I know it, so therefore I can execute it, I can carry it out. And I think perhaps one thing to keep in mind is that participants are also to be made aware of this difference, that, let's say, their declarative knowledge is quite different than the actual skill.
That's a great point, Herman, and I think that I know one of the sections I've struggled with most is the beginning self-assessment part, and finding a way to set it up. Again, I think as the course moves, I know I've been able to get participants to work with it, to understand it, but that initial self-assessment, I found that also oftentimes I think they're rating themselves on their declarative knowledge. And then once the first practice teaching comes, then suddenly there's a whole, a new awareness is born out of that. That's a good point, Henry. Anyone else?
This is Mary. One thing, Herman, you were touching on it too. I think it's important to consider the emotional context for the participants, and if that they probably could feel overwhelmed, and it's really important to do things to help them realize that they don't have to be 5, that they might change, like they might rate themselves a 3, and then halfway through the course it goes down to a 2. Because they realize they understand the concepts more, 2 weeks into the course than they did in the beginning of the course. They thought they understood it, and then they realized they had a different understanding, and that's beautiful. That's what we're looking for. Teachers in particular, but learners are so geared to thinking in a way of how am I going to please my teacher? How am I going to get it right? They're in so deep into the right-wrong brain set that it's hard to shift to really just look at what's happening. And how am I participating in what's happening? And so I think anything trainers can do to ahead of time, set up the troubleshooting and saying, well, this could happen or that could happen, and all that's okay. And then when it does happen, again, reassure them, hey, yeah, you look at that, you rated yourself a 4, and now you're rating yourself a 2. Isn't that interesting? It's not bad. It actually shows learning. And to help them move beyond that mindset that more is better.
And I actually agree with that in the sense that, if we're dealing with CASA, knowledge and skill are quite, though they're actually part of the same process, they can actually be quite discrete from each other. So, and also, thinking about it, would there be a possibility of having a session in which there is some awareness raising of the fact that knowledge does not equal skill? and that there are in fact 4 different realms to be worked on throughout the course.
Herman, I think that's what makes the course so rich, and that we do work on the knowledge, skills, attitude, awareness, or if you want to use the cultural knowings framework. I think that we look at learning and we work with learning in a number of different ways, and that's what makes it rich. So I think more awareness of that, the better. And it could even come out in the pre-course task if you guys do pre-course tasks, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's something that would certainly benefit them. The more aware they become of it, perhaps the better they will be, let's say, or the more they will be in charge of their learning process from the get-go.
Annie, were you going to add something? I saw your name pop up there.
No, I just joined. Thanks. Oops. Oops.
Okay. Hey, Annie.
Joined. Thanks. Hey. It's exciting. Such great points are being made.
Well, yeah, Herman, just to reiterate, I think that's a nice idea of really just being explicit about the CASA and that there are knowledge and skills being worked on, that we're not only working on sort of, I know another concern I've heard raised, no one here is raising it today, but is a concern that the competencies could become too behaviorist, and concern that we're concerned too much about behavior and not taking into account the other pieces as well. I hear somebody's not muted. Some interesting TVs going on, but so just to summarize some of the ideas that have been brought up in chat, James mentioned the idea of would it be possible to, again, since we're looking at demonstrated behaviors, would it be possible to capture these on video in some way? Again, I think I think the challenge is always to show the participants, sort of justify what the mark we're giving them. And one way to do that, I know, is through observation notes and taking detailed notes. We can show them. James was asking, is there a way we could capture that on video so that they can see clearly that this is that they're not demonstrating it? Because I know one challenge when assessing is when the participant feels like they have done it, whereas our observations say differently, that we haven't seen it. And I know I've had some moments of tension around that. And James was asking, could we capture that on video? I know on the Peace-Out courses we have used video for one practice teaching, and that has been helpful. We never used it as a means of assessment per se. We gave it to them as a means of self-assessment. I've never heard of it being used kind of in that way. Good point, though, James.
I guess one question that I'd like to ask would be, what are some ways in which everyone here, or what are your experiences on how to assess attitude? Because as I'm reading the competencies, I'm looking mainly at performance or just descriptions of performance. Yet, if we're thinking about competencies, we would not only link in the declarative knowledge component, the skill of it, but also developing a certain attitude towards it. So how is that assessed?
And I don't have the other document in front of me, but I believe the previous record book had a section on attitude. Is that right, Mary?
We don't have a ECRIF section on attitude, but I can share with you how I've worked with attitude and where I've come to so far with that. So when I work, the course originally was founded on the principles of a definition of reflective practice based on Dewey. Now that I'm doing this doctorate right now, it's cool. I'm just learning all about these other takes on experiential learning and reflection. But what we really focus on, what we use is Dewey's 4 main criteria for defining reflection, which include, it's a meaning-making experience, it's systematic and rigorous, it's done in community, and the 4th one is it requires certain attitudes that value everyone's learning. And so we've always, for years, I just kind of put that out there, but I never worked with that 4th quality of, how do we really work with this, how do people having wholeheartedness and valuing everybody's learning, until we started working with compassionate communication, and for me that is the framework I've been working with to cultivate, nurture attitudes, and it comes out of Marshall Rosenberg's work, and it's based on the idea, just to be really brief, that we are all human beings and we all have needs, and that our actions and behaviors are all trying to get those needs met. And so if we can start to dialogue, if we can start to understand what those needs are and dialogue, then we can find ways to help people get their needs met. And I was just looking at this course now. We have a group that started on Sunday, and it's a very sweet group. I think last month was a sweet group. And I feel like over the years, I've been putting pictures up on Facebook. You guys were celebrating our 10th anniversary, and so I'm going through and looking at some old photos, and I was looking at some groups that were a little bit more challenging and difficult, and where I didn't have that as a framework. And I think I probably would have felt those groups were sweeter had I been able to have this framework to understand, different ways of these skills of talking about human needs, universal human needs. So I think it's a very individual thing. I don't think a course can necessarily dictate it, but I've found it to be really helpful. And I think that part of the reason most of our groups, even though we've had some prickly people, I think we haven't failed people. We haven't had people who have really failed on skill level, because I think we're more attuned with their needs and really working with their needs and our own needs, so that we are less prickly. I'm less prickly.
That sounds like a great idea, and congratulations, Mary. I saw a picture of my group many years ago, and time has actually flown. I think it's been already almost 10 years. So congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. You too. You've grown too.
And getting back to this idea, I'm thinking, because my experience with the course is that for the majority of participants, except a few cases, it has been a life-transforming experience. And so I'm wondering, if we're looking at the different realms of CASA, I would say that probably in my experience, one of the most important ones has been attitude, because attitude, first, of course, awareness would be the initial point, but attitude is actually, in my experience, the catalyst that can lead to transformation.
That's right. Gatenya would say that only awareness is educatable, but I would say it's just the first step.
Yes, I think it's the point of entry, right? And then awareness, and then attitude, I think, is actually attitude takes knowledge and skills and it actually puts them together to create transformation, to transform behaviors, to transform practices, to transform ways of seeing in the world and actually seeing learning. And I think that that's why, to me, attitudes, it's actually probably one of the most important aspects of CASA. And that's why I had asked about how to go about and assessing it, right? Because it's such a big and heavy component of transformation.
Yeah, Herman, I think that's a really good point, and Mary, and this idea that I think attitude is one of the things, reading all of the, course evaluations, this is what comes up so often, is that people saying how the course has changed them in so many ways, and oftentimes unexpected ways. And, I mean, that's so great, and it's powerful. I mean, the other questions it raises is, I mean, I think I don't know that it is explicitly in the record book, and I guess one of the questions is, how explicit do we need to be about the fact that you're signing up, you're going to take this course, and do we need to tell people they might be transformed? Do they need to know this ahead of time? Be ready, you're about to embark on a spiritual journey towards enlightenment. How much do we want to, how explicit do we want to be? And once you start trying to put that into competencies, what does that do to it?
So Kevin, I would never touch this in the competencies, except on a professional level, which we have. I don't know if it's in the beginning of them right now. Sorry for the background noise. We're building. Sorry. I think that, you can be punctual, be cooperative, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't say ever to anybody, you're going to come and have a transformative experience. Because that is something that could, first of all, I would really have to check my ego. I would never want to say that to anybody. I think that's something that it comes from inside an individual and how they respond to a situation, and if it's right for them or wrong for them. I wouldn't want to, I say possibly transformative on our website, because it is possibly transformative, but I would never want to say that you're going to be transformed. I think that feels really domineering and arrogant. Not saying anybody here is, but I just feel like I just wouldn't, I would get the heebie-jeebies.
Thanks, Mary.
I did say, though, when people were asking me, well, what's the difference between the S.I.T. course and the CELTA, I said, I've never heard of a person taking the CELTA and saying that it was a life-changing experience, but I have heard many people say that about the S.I.T. course.
Thanks, Annie.
If somebody's interested, I'll send you guys a list. I do have a list of descriptors for the nonviolent communication that is all the different skills, 26 different skills. It's a really beautiful matrix that describes behaviors that show that those skills are being practiced or not. It's much more than we would need for this course, but if you're interested, I think it's a really useful tool.
And one area where we do use or do address this more explicitly would be in the TBT record book when dealing with people becoming trainers. There's a pretty large section on interpersonal qualities and skills. And it's one of the ones that people often, in my experience, have the hardest time meeting. Well, we're technically at the ending hour, but we could continue for a few more minutes depending on people's time. I was trying to keep these to around an hour, but things move at a bit of a slower pace on internationally like this. Do people need to go?
I'm fine for a few more minutes.
Okay, well, if you need to log out, feel free to do so. Um, any other thoughts on this, on the competencies? I know one of the things that had been brought up last meeting, and we're not addressing this in this meeting, mainly because I couldn't figure out a way to do it exactly. We talked about sort of aligning ourselves as trainers and how we rate these different points. For example, watching a video and then people marking them and seeing where we are, or where we would mark them. Again, I wasn't sure how well that would work because, again, oftentimes we're looking at the progression of several lessons, and to sort of isolate that to seeing one lesson I felt would be challenging. So one thing we could talk about is that something people are interested in doing, and if so, any ideas on how to go about doing that?
I'm not sure I follow you, Kevin. I wasn't there for the first conversation, so I'm not sure what you mean.
Thanks, Susan. Basically, the conversation was around aligning ourselves as trainers on how we're rating participants on these points. So if Susan, if you and I are watching the same person, are we seeing the same? Obviously, we're not seeing the same thing, but are we rating around the same way, or are we drastically different?
Okay. I see what you mean.
I think the challenge might be with that numbering that you talked about earlier. If we're seeing one lesson or one participant, we really can't see how many times this has happened, or if a participant demonstrates that they're able to do something consistently or once in a while, or if it's the first time they managed it. And that feeds into the competencies, right? I mean, that's what basically determines where they are in the scale after the awareness.
Yeah, that's kind of where I got stuck too, Carrie, in trying to figure out how to go about doing this.
This is James speaking, and I'm just going to chip in since this was actually one of my ideas from the last meeting. And I think what I had in mind was that I think this norming process wouldn't necessarily be assessing the participant's growth over a course, but rather just as a tool, like a catalyst for us to see something, to share something that's the same for everybody, so we can say, oh, this is what it is, and this is what it's not. But it's not like measuring, some growth. I'm not sure if that's what you were saying earlier, Kevin, that you found it challenging because, and also as Carrie was saying earlier, that if you don't see it multiple times, but then I think the purpose wouldn't be seeing it multiple times, but rather just like this one time, where does it sit on the scale? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Thanks for clarifying, James.
I'd like to contribute a little. I'm actually when this was discussed in the last meeting, I was actually thinking about how can we as trainers sort of come to or learn from each other, not come to one standard, but how can we learn from each other in terms of observation? I do feel that observation in the training process for becoming an S.I.T. trainer is one of the least developed skills in the process. And I would love to watch a 20 or 30-minute video of someone teaching and take the kind of observation notes that I've been taking and compare them to someone else's and to see what am I not seeing or how else can I reword this. This was what I thought last meeting's question was about, and I would love to pursue that because I feel like I want to expand in what is observation.
I think one thing to keep in mind also that it might be a multiple step process, meaning first having a clear understanding of the tool, meaning the terminology, what does it mean? If we have the same understanding of, let's say, what is implied in staging a productive skills lesson, that would be the first stage, like calibrating our understanding of the terms of what is meant by the specific competencies. And then the second step would be the application of the tool to observing a session. So it's like a two-step process as I see it.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I'll.
Herman, I believe that we need to scaffold this, but I was just going to say that I agree with Herman. I think that what we're doing needs to be scaffolded, but I'm extremely open to the possibility of sharing and expanding my observation skills. That was what I thought the last meeting's question was. So I'm sorry if it was off.
Yeah, I think that could be a really
That's actually
valuable
a great
activity,
idea.
Amanda.
So please go ahead.
Hey, Herman. No, I was just going to reiterate, I thought that could be a nice activity and just say maybe we can follow up, Herman, Amanda, and James, and try to come together an idea on kind of how to go about doing that in a future meeting. Okay. No, yeah, again, I think that's a good idea. And so Herman, Amanda, and James, if y'all don't mind, we'll connect via email and see if we can come up with an idea of delving into that. I think that could be really useful.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. And I maybe now the way it's not so hard to make videos now. We might see if we can ask some people to make some short videos, like a 10-minute video or something, or we could take one here and then upload it on YouTube and then ask people to do to write their own notes, and maybe y'all turn them in at some point to somebody, and then we look at each other's notes. I think that it's really doable.
Yeah, I think that's great. And if one of you guys that are out there in the field up here, we just don't really have students to video. So if somebody could find a student that might agree to be for their video to be used just internally for our own development purposes, that would be great. I think we could also find things online, possibly.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I had wanted to keep this to about an hour, so I've tried to record this, so hopefully this time it'll be available to everybody. Again, I think it's going well. I think we're all still learning the technology, and so as we learn that, I think the conversations will continue to grow. But I think it's important that we're taking the first step and coming together and chatting with each other and beginning these important conversations. Just before I go, I just wanted to, I had it up earlier, but I wanted, while I have your attention, I just wanted to share with you the blog, which you always hear me railing on about on the listserv. But since y'all are here, what we'd really like to do is to hear from your participants on the blog. So the way I've done it is I've asked, I've identified like a key participant, somebody that I think would be able to do this and be into it, and I give a personal ask and ask them to write something up. I point them to the blog and as a few examples so that they can see. So again, we've just kind of reworked it and tried to make it look more official. Oops, sorry about that. And so yeah, just if you can, we'd really like to hear from other people. Our most recent blog post is a documentary that was made about the project we did this summer with a group of Pakistani teachers and students, so you can look at that.
Hey, Kevin, we've got on our website, we have a teacher that made a little video each week about her experience, or each night about her experience. Maybe
oh, wow.
We can turn that into something for the blog.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll send you the link on the website. Yeah.
And that's really what we're looking for is raw data that then we can tweak it and we'll do the editing and stuff.
Good.
We don't mind doing that part, but what we just need is stuff to work with. You know, there's only so much I have to say. So what we really want are voices from participants. So if they write up something and then kind of give us permission to do some editing, then we'll share it with them before actually putting it on the blog. But what we usually look for is kind of a short, writing about their impact and you know what they've learned from the course, something like that, and then some images. And that's all I have. Any last thoughts or ideas before we all break? Thanks for coming, everybody.
Nice talking to all of
Thank you.
Nice that you're there, Megan, and Carrie and James.
Yes.
Great to talk
Thanks so much for this nice meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks you guys. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.